I'm sitting here now, the woman said, her voice dripping with dismissal, and there's nothing you can do about it. The words, sharp and cold, cut through the quiet hum of the first-class cabin. Jessica Williams stood in the aisle, her boarding pass held delicately in her hand. The crisp paper was an irrefutable fact. Seat 1A, first class. Yet a stranger lounged in her place, sipping champagne and scrolling through her phone as if she owned the plane itself. "Excuse me," Jessica said, her voice a model of politeness. "I believe this is my seat." She offered the boarding pass for inspection. The woman, Brittany Matthews, barely glanced up. A smirk played on her lips. "Well, I don't see your name on it." Disbelief flickered across Jessica's face, but her composure remained absolute. She was an elegant figure in a crisp blazer, her late mother's diamond earrings catching the cabin light, a quiet reminder of the woman who had taught her that dignity came from within, not from the seat one occupied. "Ma'am," she insisted gently, "I think you need to check your ticket." Brittany's response was a spectacle of superiority. She looked Jessica up and down, her gaze lingering with theatrical disdain. "Listen, sweetie," she said, her voice rising for the benefit of an unseen audience. "Maybe you should head back to economy, where you belong." With breathtaking audacity, Brittany positioned her phone, its screen glowing with the telltale interface of a live stream. "Y'all," she announced to her followers, her voice loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear, "some people really think they can just take whatever they want." A ripple of discomfort went through the cabin. Phones began to emerge as others started recording, sensing a viral moment in the making. Whispers of disgust and disbelief spread among the passengers. What they were witnessing was a blatant, ugly display of prejudice. What Brittany didn't know, what no one could have known, was that the woman she was so casually humiliating held a secret that could unravel her entire, carefully curated life. Jessica Williams was not just any passenger. She was the CEO and owner of Williams Aviation Group, the very airline they were flying on. She flew undercover regularly, a ghost in her own machine, to assess the quality of her company's service. Today's flight was about to become the most eye-opening experience of her career. Her calm exterior masked a will of steel, forged through years of building an aviation empire from the ground up. She had faced discrimination before, but never with such public, performative cruelty. Brittany Matthews, meanwhile, lived a life built for the screen. A 29-year-old lifestyle influencer, she had cultivated a following of 500,000 people who hung on her every post. Her income was a fragile ecosystem of brand deals, dependent on an image of luxurious, aspirational living. Today, that image was about to be shattered. As the tension mounted, a young flight attendant named Miguel Santos approached. He had only been with the airline for 2 years, but he recognized a volatile situation when he saw one. "Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass," he said to Brittany, his tone professional but firm. Brittany held up her phone like a shield. "Are you seriously going to side with her over me?" she challenged, ensuring her followers saw everything. "I have 500,000 people watching this right now." The threat was unmistakable. Her social media influence was a weapon, and she was aiming it at a young employee just trying to do his job. Jessica's voice remained steady. "I just need you to move to your assigned seat." What Brittany said next silenced the cabin. Her voice rang out a declaration of racist entitlement. "I was here first. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and no black person is going to get me out of this seat." A collective gasp went through the rows. Passengers typed furiously on their phones, sharing the raw, unfolding drama. Unseen by all but one, the entire scene was also playing out on a monitor in the cockpit. Captain David Mitchell, a veteran pilot of 55, was the only crew member who recognized the woman being degraded in his cabin. He knew exactly who Jessica Williams was, and he watched in horror as his airline failed its most important passenger. Miguel, flustered but resolute, finally managed to see Brittany's boarding pass. He looked at it with growing concern. "Ma'am," he stated, the evidence undeniable, "your ticket is for seat 12B, in economy." Instead of accepting the truth, Brittany launched into a performance of manufactured victimhood. "That's discrimination," she shrieked, pointing her camera at Miguel's face. "You're harassing me because I'm successful. This airline is targeting me." The irony was staggering, but the situation was about to get infinitely worse. Rebecca Stone, a senior flight attendant, arrived on the scene. She should have been the voice of reason. Instead, the moment she saw Brittany, her professionalism vanished. "Oh my God, Brittany Matthews," she gushed, completely starstruck. "I follow you religiously. I loved your post about the Bahamas." Brittany preened under the attention. Her power in the situation instantly solidified. "Thank you so much," she purred. "I love meeting followers, especially ones with actual authority." Rebecca, thoroughly manipulated, turned to Jessica. Her next words sent a shockwave through the cabin. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to find another seat." Jessica's composure, though tested, did not break. "This is my assigned seat," she said calmly, presenting her pass once more. "Check the manifest." But Rebecca waved her hand dismissively, never even glancing at her tablet. "Sometimes there are mix-ups," she said, delivering a line that would seal her fate. "Brittany deserves this seat." Deserves. The word hung in the air, a testament to an institutional betrayal. In that moment, a memory flashed through Jessica's mind. She saw her mother, Eleanor, a woman who had worked 3 jobs to put her through business school, a woman who had faced 1,000 daily cuts of discrimination, but had never, ever broken. "Baby," her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Never let anyone make you feel small. You belong wherever your dreams take you." Those words had carried her through hostile boardrooms and dismissive investors. They would carry her through this. "I'm not moving," Jessica stated, her voice quiet but unshakable. "She's getting aggressive now. Typical," Brittany announced to her live stream, twisting Jessica's reasonable stance into a racist trope. Her comment section exploded with support. As Rebecca brought Brittany another glass of champagne, Jessica stood to retrieve her business documents from the overhead bin, hoping some proof of her standing might cut through the delusion. She moved slowly, deliberately. That's when Rebecca made her move. Carrying a full-service tray, she walked directly into Jessica's path. The collision was no accident. The tray's contents, red wine, orange juice, olive tapenade, exploded across Jessica's pristine white blazer, ruining the expensive garment instantly. Positioned perfectly for Brittany's camera, Rebecca delivered an Oscar-worthy performance. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," she cried out. "You're being violent and disrupting the flight." "See?" Brittany narrated to her audience, zooming in on the stained, humiliated Jessica. "This is what I was talking about. We need security up here." The other passengers sat in stunned silence, having witnessed the deliberate act and the shameless lie that followed. The injustice culminated in Jessica being forced to gather her ruined belongings and walk toward the back of the plane. Brittany celebrated her victory on her live stream. "And that, my beautiful followers," she gloated, "is how you handle entitled people." As Jessica began the walk of shame, Brittany deliberately stuck out her foot, blocking the aisle. "Watch where you're walking," she sneered, as Jessica was forced to wait. The pettiness was breathtaking. Jessica finally found herself in 23B, a middle seat squeezed between a crying baby and a large passenger who spilled into her space. The young mother of the infant looked exhausted and mortified. Without hesitation, Jessica leaned over and began to hum a soft lullaby, the same one her own mother had sung to her. Within minutes, the baby calmed, sleeping peacefully. Even this act of kindness became fodder for Brittany's cruelty. "Playing mommy now? How touching," she mocked on her live stream. "I guess some people will do anything for attention." The passengers nearby were appalled. They had seen this woman endure a torrent of abuse with nothing but grace. They had watched her help a stranger, while the woman in first class continued her campaign of petty torment. A moment later, Miguel approached Jessica's seat, his face a mask of shame. "Ma'am," he whispered, "I am so incredibly sorry. This isn't right." Jessica looked at the young man and saw a good person trapped in an impossible situation. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I know it isn't your fault. You tried to do the right thing." Miguel had no idea he was speaking to the woman who held his career in her hands. But every second of the humiliation, every lie, every drop of wine on that ruined white blazer had been witnessed. The woman they had systematically abused was about to reveal a truth that would bring their world crashing down. Just as it seemed Brittany's racist tirade would go unchecked, the universe delivered a correction that no one saw coming. The aircraft lurched violently to the left, then plunged in a sickening drop that felt like 100 feet in a second. The turbulence struck without warning, a brutal fist shaking the cabin. Drinks arced through the air, and passengers white-knuckled their armrests. The overhead bins rattled a frantic rhythm as the plane bucked against the unstable air. Brittany's live stream ended abruptly as her phone was torn from her grasp, skittering across the first-class floor. The woman who, moments before, had been a vessel of cruel confidence was now screaming. Her carefully curated influencer persona disintegrated in an instant. "Oh my God, we're going to crash," she shrieked, her voice a blade of pure panic. "I'm too young to die. This plane is falling apart." She clung to her seat, hyperventilating, tears carving paths through her perfect makeup. Her phone, her connection to the world that validated her, now lay cracked and dark on the cabin floor. Her audience was gone. But while chaos reigned in first class, a quiet miracle was unfolding in coach. Jessica Williams, the target of such venomous humiliation, was demonstrating the nature of true strength. Across the aisle, a man in his 70s was in the grips of a full-blown panic attack, clutching his chest and gasping for breath. His wife wept beside him, helpless. Without a second thought, Jessica unbuckled her belt. Bracing herself against the violent shaking of the plane, she knelt beside the man. "Sir," she said, her voice calm and authoritative, cutting through his terror. "Look at me. You're having an anxiety attack, but you are going to be okay. I need you to breathe with me." She began to guide him through slow, deep breaths, her voice a steady anchor in the storm. "In through your nose for 4. Hold for 4. Out through your mouth for 4. That's it. You're doing great." Slowly, the man's ragged gasps began to match her rhythm. His color started to return. Other passengers watched in awe as the woman who had been treated like refuse took command of a medical emergency with the poise of a seasoned professional. Even through her own hysteria, Brittany saw it. She watched Jessica's quiet competence from her first-class seat, and her own shrieking panic suddenly felt pathetic. Yet it wasn't shame she felt, but a sharp, ugly resentment. The turbulence began to ease, the violent shudders softening into a gentle rocking. Just as the elderly man's breathing returned to normal, the cockpit door opened. "Senior flight attendant to the cockpit immediately," Captain David Mitchell's voice announced over the intercom. The tone was not routine. It was stern, heavy with consequence. Rebecca Stone heard the call, and her smugness returned like a reflex. She was sure this was her commendation. "Probably about my complaint," she murmured, straightening her uniform. "I bet corporate wants to thank me for handling that situation." She strode toward the cockpit, oblivious to the disgusted stares of the passengers she passed. What Rebecca didn't know was that Captain Mitchell had seen everything. The cabin security monitors had shown him every racist slur, every act of harassment, every violation of company policy and basic human decency. He had recognized Jessica Williams the moment she boarded, and had watched in disbelief as his own crew abused the owner of the entire airline. A moment later, the captain himself emerged from the cockpit. He was a man in his 50s, with a face that looked carved from stone. He surveyed the cabin, his eyes missing nothing. Rebecca approached him, a confident smile on her face, ready for her praise. "What exactly happened here?" The captain's voice was as sharp as breaking ice. Rebecca launched into her fabricated story, speaking loudly for all to hear. "Sir, that passenger and coach was being violent. She was trying to steal this influencer's seat and became aggressive when we tried to resolve it. I had to intervene. Honestly, I think she might have been drinking." The lies flowed effortlessly. She painted herself the hero, Brittany the victim, and Jessica an unhinged threat. But Captain Mitchell had seen the truth. He had seen Rebecca deliberately spill drinks on Jessica. He had watched her enable and encourage the worst kind of discrimination. He looked past Rebecca, his gaze landing on Jessica. His expression softened with a profound respect that was visible to everyone. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying through the now silent cabin, "would you please come forward?" Brittany shot up from her stolen seat, her face alight with vindictive joy. "Finally," she declared. "Someone with authority. I've been trying to tell you all she's been a problem from the start." Jessica rose from her cramped middle seat with unshakable dignity. Every eye followed her as she walked down the aisle, her posture erect, her head held high. When she reached the front, Captain Mitchell turned to address the entire plane. "Everyone, please give me your attention," he announced. The cabin held its breath. The captain looked at Jessica with clear admiration, then turned his gaze back to the passengers. He spoke the words that would change everything. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Jessica Williams, the CEO and owner of Williams Aviation Group." which owns this entire airline. The silence was absolute. For a long, stunned moment, no one moved. The woman who had been told she belonged in economy, who had been called aggressive, whose seat had been stolen and dignity assaulted, owned the very plane they were sitting on. Brittany's face went corpse white. The racist influencer who had built her performance on the assumption of superiority had just abused the most powerful person on the aircraft. Then, the cabin erupted. Gasps of shock gave way to a thunderous, spontaneous ovation. The elderly man Jessica had helped was on his feet, clapping through tears. His wife joined him, followed by the mother with the now sleeping baby. Soon, the entire coach section was giving a standing ovation, a roar of approval for the woman who had shown them such grace. Rebecca Stone stood frozen, the serving tray she held crashing to the floor in a clatter of shattering glass. The sound was like a gunshot marking the end of her career. Smug satisfaction had dissolved into pure terror. Brittany, meanwhile, fumbled for her cracked phone, her hands shaking as she desperately tried to end her live stream. But it was too late. Thousands had watched her downfall. The chat, once filled with praise, was now a torrent of condemnation. "Most racist thing I've ever seen," one comment read. Another, "She's finished." Jessica stepped forward, and the applause subsided. "I fly undercover regularly," she began, her voice calm yet resonant with power, "to see how our passengers are treated. Today, I experienced something no person should ever have to face. But I also witnessed something beautiful. I saw passengers stand up for what is right. I saw crew members like Miguel try to do their job with integrity. These are the moments that remind us of our shared humanity." Rebecca stumbled forward and fell to her knees. "Miss Williams, I didn't know," she stammered, her professional mask completely shattered. "I swear, I didn't know. I was just trying to keep everyone happy." Jessica looked down at the groveling woman, her expression one of profound disappointment. "You thought what, Rebecca? That a woman who looks like me couldn't possibly belong in first class? You poured drinks on me. You lied about me to an audience of thousands. You chose to impress an influencer over doing your job with integrity." The question hung in the air, an indictment from which there was no escape. Brittany made one last, pathetic attempt at damage control. "This was all a misunderstanding," she whimpered, her makeup streaked with tears. "I'm not racist. I have black friends. I was just confused about the seating." Her words were a hollow echo, lost in the resounding silence of her own self-destruction. "Anyone could have made that mistake," she pleaded, her voice a thin thread against the thick silence of the cabin. Her eyes darted around, searching desperately for a single face that might offer a glimmer of belief. But there were none. Every passenger on that flight had heard it all with their own ears. They had heard her sneer at Jessica, telling her to go back to economy where you belong. They had heard the venom in her voice as she declared that no black person would ever unseat her. They had witnessed the deliberate cruelty, the mocking commentary, the relentless harassment of a woman who had met her vitriol with nothing but quiet grace. Her claims of innocence were hollow echoes, drowned out by the overwhelming and undeniable evidence of her bigotry, and worse, so much worse, it had all been broadcast live to her hundreds of thousands of followers. What Brittany didn't realize was that the digital firestorm had already begun. Her racist behavior was spreading across the internet like wildfire, moving faster than she could possibly comprehend. Social media algorithms, designed to amplify controversy, had found their perfect fuel. And nothing was more controversial than watching an influencer expose their own ugliness in real time. Within just 2 hours of the flight landing, Brittany Matthews racist was the #1 trending topic on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtag moved with a velocity no marketing campaign could ever dream of, but this was an engine of destruction, not creation. Screen recordings of her livestream multiplied into the millions. Clips of her most vile comments, her targeted harassment of Jessica, her smug laughter, and her final panicked meltdown became viral sensations. The hashtag was a tidal wave of outrage, disgust, and demands for accountability. "This is absolutely disgusting behavior," read one viral tweet, attached to the clip of Brittany's "back to economy" remark. "How does someone think it's okay to act like this in 2024? This is pure, unfiltered racism. Cancel her now." Another post, shared over 50,000 times, was even more direct. "This racist influencer needs to face real consequences. No more brand deals, no more platform, no more income from spreading hate. A popular Instagram account with millions of followers sealed her fate. Brittany Matthews exposed. This is who she really is when she thinks no one important is watching. Absolutely shameful. The story was a shark in bloody water. Celebrity gossip accounts feasted on it, news outlets began reporting on it, and soon, international media was covering the racist influencer airline incident. The name Brittany Matthews had become a global shorthand for discrimination and hate. The backlash was swift, brutal, and absolute. The major brands that had built lucrative partnerships with Brittany began to sever ties with surgical precision, desperate to distance themselves from the stain of her bigotry. Nova, one of her biggest sponsors, who paid her over $10,000 per post, issued an official statement within hours. "We do not condone discrimination of any kind. Effective immediately, Brittany Matthews' contract has been terminated and all future collaborations are canceled." A major beauty brand, which had just featured her in their latest campaign, quickly followed. "Our company was built on celebrating diversity and inclusion. This behavior does not align with our principles in any way. Our partnership with Brittany Matthews has ended and her image will be removed from all our marketing materials." Her fitness company sponsor, the source of a six-figure annual deal, was just as decisive. "Effective immediately, we are ending our collaboration with Brittany Matthews. We stand against racism in all its forms and will not associate our brand with individuals who promote discrimination." One by one, like dominoes falling in perfect grim succession, every brand deal that had propped up Brittany's luxurious lifestyle vanished. The companies that had paid her to promote their products, the partnerships that had funded her designer clothes and exotic vacations, wanted nothing to do with a person who had exposed herself as a racist on a live stream to hundreds of thousands of viewers. Even smaller brands and local businesses began posting statements distancing themselves. The message was clear. Racism was bad for business, and Brittany Matthews was now toxic. Meanwhile, Rebecca Stone was facing her own swift and merciless reckoning. The moment the plane landed, Jessica had convened an immediate meeting with the airline's executive team. The response was faster than anyone could have expected. "Rebecca Stone violated every principle our company stands for," Jessica stated, her voice calm but firm, during a conference call held while the plane was still taxiing to the gate. "She discriminated against a passenger based on race, she physically assaulted me by deliberately pouring drinks on me, she lied to cover her behavior, and she enabled harassment that should never happen on any flight operated by our airline." The HR director's reply was immediate and unequivocal. "She's been terminated, effective immediately. This behavior is completely unacceptable and goes against everything we claim to represent." Rebecca was met at the gate by security personnel and escorted directly to clear out her locker as other flight attendants watched in shocked silence. Some turned away, unable to associate with someone who had brought such shame to their profession. Others whispered about how a 20-year veteran could throw it all away for a social media influencer. Her union representative's arguments were useless against the mountain of evidence. The entire incident had been recorded, broadcast, and witnessed by hundreds. In a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, Rebecca agreed to an interview with a local news reporter. "I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed to the camera, tears streaming down her face. "I let my personal biases cloud my professional judgment. I was starstruck, and I forgot my duty to treat all passengers with respect." But her apology came too late and rang hollow. The aviation industry is a surprisingly tight-knit community, and word of her actions had already poisoned the well. No airline would hire someone with her track record. She had become a liability no company could afford to take on. Brittany's downfall was even more spectacular. Her phone, once a conduit for fame and fortune, now delivered a constant barrage of cancellation notifications from brands, agencies, and partners. The life she had so carefully curated on social media was disintegrating in real time. Her agent's call was the final nail in the coffin. "Brittany, I have to drop you as a client. No legitimate company will work with you now. Your brand is completely toxic." 2 weeks later, an eviction notice appeared on the door of her $4,000 a month luxury apartment. Without the steady income from brand partnerships, she couldn't afford the lifestyle she had been showcasing. In a moment of total collapse, she called one of her few remaining friends, sobbing uncontrollably. "My whole life is ruined because of one live stream. How was I supposed to know she owned the airline? This isn't fair." Her friend's reply cut straight to the heart of the matter with brutal honesty. It wasn't one live stream, Brittany. It was who you really are. You showed everyone your true character, and now you have to live with the consequences. The problem isn't that you didn't know who she was. The problem is how you treated another human being. 6 months later, the transformation was complete, and the contrast could not have been more striking. Jessica Williams stood on stage at the Aviation Industry Leadership Awards, accepting a prestigious humanitarian prize for the comprehensive reforms she had implemented across her airline group. The Williams Aviation Group now boasted a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, mandatory bias training for all employees, and a passenger bill of rights that had become a new model for the entire industry. The company's customer satisfaction scores had reached record highs. And Miguel Santos, the young flight attendant who had tried to do the right thing, now wore the uniform of a senior flight attendant. His integrity had earned him Jessica's personal respect and a bright future with the company. He had become something of a hero, speaking at training seminars about the importance of standing up for what is right. Brittany's fate was a stark and poetic counterpoint. The final scene of her story played out not in a luxury high-rise, but at the drive-through window of a fast food restaurant on the outskirts of town. Dressed in a polyester uniform, she took orders from a speaker, her voice flat and lifeless. Her manager had made it clear that any hint of an attitude would mean immediate termination. The influencer who once lived for attention and admiration now kept her head down, trying to be invisible. Her social media profile told the tale in cold, hard numbers, from 500,000 followers down to just 12,000. Most of whom remained only to leave cruel comments, a constant reminder of the day her true character was exposed to the world. If this incredible story of justice and consequences has left you speechless, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because karma stories like this one don't come around very often.